Thank you, Don, and good afternoon to everybody. Firstly, I just wanted to acknowledge and thank ARLEC, LiveCorp and MLA for the opportunity today to present to you all. A bit of background, perhaps, just to set some context. I started my career path in local government, and during the mid-1990s, I was very fortunate to be in a position at the time where national competition policy set a new framework for public sector. They were required to outsource a lot of the traditional government administrative functions like healthcare, defence, transport. And during that period, being on the inside, I got to see that there was a big push towards self-regulation, or what they like to call co-regulation, but there wasn't a lot of framework for the new private sector entities to manage. So they kind of developed their own systems. There was a lack of consistency, lack of standardisation, and it was probably at that moment for me, and having studied in Europe and looking at New Zealand models who were 8 years ahead, to look at what worked, look what didn't work, as part of my thesis for my degree at RMIT, and come up with a solution, if you like. And I guess it's still relevant today because a lot of industry sectors that we work with across the globe have or have not defined their industry standards. Regulation is somewhat inconsistent, whether it be nationally or across states, and it makes it really difficult for operators to work, both here domestically and or overseas. And so I have empathy for supply chain operators, because it's very difficult for them to know exactly what to do to manage compliance in their business. Some of the work that we've had the opportunity to do includes, and I just want to outline a couple of projects over the last 21 years. We've been engaged in North America and Canada. We worked with the Alcohol Gaming Commission of Ontario to help them implement licensing and accreditation for their casino operators, their alcohol distribution, because the government has all rights to distribute alcohol, and for their racetrack and slot facilities. That was an interesting experience because we were able to automate their compliance program, and shortly after there was mad cows broke out. And so the Department of Agriculture over there contacted us, having known that we automated the casino and gaming industry, and reached out for a solution. And that's relevant to today because one of the things I've heard throughout yesterday and today is this problem of compliance, what a big challenge it is, how complex it is, and how much it's costing. But there's better ways, and I hope that today, in my short moment, that I can inspire you and say there is a better way, we can reduce the cost, we can cut the complexity, and we've just all got to agree on terms that work for all the supply chain parties. And I know that's a challenge, but it can be done, and we've proven that it can be done, and it saves a lot of money for all the parties concerned. Interesting with the mad cows instance, what came out of that process was that it was agreed unilaterally between all the parties, regulators, supply chain, and actually even the customers, that they would agree a single standard, and they would have a shared assessment process where they did one audit that satisfied all parties, and they could attest to that. They all agreed on the principles, and it removed this need to have 10 and 20 or 30 audits. I've met with people in the last 2 days. It's a clear frustration, and I see it across other industry sectors, and it can be changed. We've worked with the World Bank in Africa. They had issues around the corruption of world aid being distributed to projects. So we were able to put processes in place to make sure that the construction project was delivered on time, on budget, and the money actually got to building the necessary community infrastructure. We've worked with the Australian Stock Exchange here in Australia. ASIC in 2006 required that ASX were able to respond in real time to changes with listed entities. Before that, it was faxed, emailed, phoned, various methods to capture the information. More recently, we're working with the short-term accommodation industry sector, which is under pressure to resolve community amenity issues, including noise, water, parking, and associated with short stay accommodation arrangements, and also with the Drone Tech Institute of Australia to establish an assurance framework for drone pilot training and compliance monitoring. The methodology, it doesn't really matter what sector it is the same. We've just got to agree on a set of standards that can be applied for consistency and standardisation. And we've got to be prepared to monitor it and act on it. So it's got to be transparent. It must undermine or underpin the integrity of the program. Otherwise, the effort's lost. So as you can see, from the depth of experience that we've gained over the years, we really need to make sure that the framework addresses community issues and puts a sustainable compliance and assurance framework in place. And hopefully today I will share with you some experiences through the technology side that you can actually see how we can achieve this. And it can really help shift, your compliance effort from burden to opportunity. There is gold in compliance. It's a chore. We've all got to do it. We're collecting it. It's across our enterprise. It may not have a single view or a repository, so we don't get the value out of it. So if we can bring it together, it can really help us shape what we do, the actions we take, and how we operate our business. So, that being said, just a couple of steps before we get to technology, because technology is just the enabler. It's not the answer. The answer is in the structure, the policy, the framework, and we need to take into consideration a few things. But first we need to actually recognise that government policy sets our business strategy. And from day one, we need to acknowledge the regulatory environment that we're operating in, and we acknowledge that it's both complex and challenging. And whether we like it or not, as an enterprise wanting to operate in the market, we must not only understand consumer expectations, as pointed out by Sarah yesterday, but also understand the rules of engagement and set the business strategy accordingly. This only gets further complicated when factoring international policy and laws, which also need to be accommodated, and we've heard about that a lot over the last 2 days. There's plenty of literature available through public websites. However, what we find during our engagements with industry stakeholders, organisations that operate along the supply chain, is that they don't always take the time to define their specific regulatory, social or environmental landscapes. They do not take the time to risk assess their operating environment and implement suitable risk controls. They do not actively monitor the regulatory changes or update their business processes to adapt to industry requirements. And they often waste valuable time and resources managing and monitoring outdated compliance requirements, which add very little or no value to their business. So it's really a critical business housekeeping task, but necessary one to keep on top of everything to make sure it's up to date and relevant. So defining a compliance framework, there's probably 3 key areas here. The first one is that think about the applicable laws. That's laws, acts, regulations. Consider your operations taking and looking at cross-border trading activities, and define what laws apply to your business activities. You'll just be surprised at how many laws affect your business that you may not even be aware of, and what the risk exposure might be that you're also not aware of. We definitely recommend engaging appropriate legal advice for this process. Compliance with industry assurance frameworks, voluntary or mandatory, it's a critical decision. We've seen a lot of self-regulatory frameworks across the world fail when they are voluntary. People initially subscribe and they fall away, and eventually the program gets scrapped because it didn't deliver on the promise to the stakeholders. Consider licensing rules, accreditation frameworks, certification frameworks, and determine what they mean for your business and how they actually add value. Compliance with operational risk and compliance controls. Consider how these types of programs help you provide assurance to your stakeholders, the regulators, the investors, and the end clients. Consider what are the systems you've implemented, formalised or not, to control and manage the associated compliance and operational risk. There's a difference between compliance and operational risk, and a lot of organisations do have confusion with those terms. Understand the value of each of these dimensions of a compliance and structured compliance program can not only help you demonstrate compliance when things go wrong, but more importantly provide your business with a competitive edge. And it's a real key point of difference in a highly competitive marketplace. I want to refer you to a book. It's titled Exponential Organisations, written by Salim Ismail. I've written a blog on this, and I'll put it into perspective from compliance terminology. But this book talks about exponential organisations, those modern organisations that are agile. And when I mean agile, they are stated to be 10 times better, faster and cheaper to operate than existing business models, because they embrace a disciplined, systematic approach towards managing operational risk and compliance tasks. They begin with the end in mind. They drive every part of their business through established key risk indicators and key performance indicators. They have real-time visibility, digital dashboards, and they quickly address issues before they become industry problems. I've first-hand experience in working with some of the world's leading exponential organisations, and their whole culture is driven around leveraging technology, processes, people. And it's very exciting. It is the way forward, so I encourage you to read that. Before deciding an appropriate approach for your business, and you need to review the compliance landscape, then have a look at whether you want a manual or digital approach and decide how best to deploy this across the business. We recognise that each business is uniquely different and one size does not fit all, so you need to consider your options before implementing a suitable and sustainable technology solution. Some organisations we come across have nothing in place apart from, literally, a few sticky notes on a computer to demonstrate their compliance, whilst others have fully integrated compliance monitoring platforms with all the bells and whistles. So nothing is not ideal. Excel, separate capability for inspections, audits, self-assessments, it leads to highly inefficient practices and often the information siloed. Closed systems, you can produce reports but you can't really get to the data. Open systems allow you full integration while being able to integrate with overarching business intelligence systems. But you need to consider your immediate objectives and then progress a path that provides you with the ability to extend and grow your capabilities aligned with your business performance objectives. It's important that you decide what's best for your organisation. Trust has been a topic throughout the last 2 days as well, and it's critical. Interestingly, in today's modern environment and modern world, through the advent of social media, everyone seems to have an opinion on everything and anything. And when things go wrong, they quickly become serious issues that give life to themselves. We've seen that in the last week with the Hollywood scandals, and it happens fast. So it's imperative for your business and as an industry to work together to establish a very transparent and programmed approach to managing compliance issues and gather the data quickly to counter adverse social media attention and hopefully swing the pendulum back to a point of equilibrium where points of view can be rationalised. Whatever steps are taken, it's critically important to build and maintain trust amongst your stakeholders, government, supply chain partners, investors, clients and the community. Jennifer pointed out this importance yesterday during her discussions. So now, having considered where your organisation's on the compliance journey, let's look at some options for a compliance technology platform. There are so many features and functions available today to assist with the activities. However, in Ismail's book, he references 5 Ps of big data, areas where data collection and analysis can vastly increase the performance and efficiency of an organisation. I think it's a good place to start. So we're going to look at 5 key areas: productivity, prevention, participation, personalisation and prediction. And given our own business, we've applied these points of area to compliance field to see how they can affect compliance management positively to help a business exponentially grow. And the findings based on years of data and the feedback from our clients during the last 12 to 18 months has been most impressive. So I'd like to share some of those findings through some different industry case studies. They'll be brief, but just to give you some sense that when we look at compliance from this angle and this perspective, it can really add immense value to the business. So the first one is about productivity. And quite honestly, early 2000s, most of our clients contacted us because they wanted to gain a productivity advantage. They wanted to reduce the cost of collection of data in the field, they wanted to automate their reporting, and that was pretty much it. So we had a lot of water utilities, energy companies across the globe contact us. They do hundreds of thousands of inspections, and they just wanted an easier way to do it, more efficient, and be able to press a button and generate a report. And being an auditor myself, I know exactly what that feels like. The last thing you want to do is go home and write reports. So, with a few of the case studies that we've worked on, we've been able to achieve about a 30%, and that's conservative savings in time and effort associated with just simply digitising an audit or inspection checklist. So that gives you a lot more consistency, gives you a lot more standardisation, and it just provides more valuable feedback for the business. Prevention. Routine compliance checks, audits, inspections and assessments all prevent risk exposure in many areas such as product safety, quality control measures. We've been working with a number of supply chains in transport, logistics, retail, coal seam gas, and we've been able to implement a whole range of different ways to gather data. And again, with our water utilities experience, they're now deploying drones and other devices to capture data. And the real critical issue for them is that they want to actually prevent breakage of pipes, sewage points, drains, etc. Because the cost of unplanned or unscheduled repairs is significantly high. So there's a significant advantage by having the capability in the field, where you've already got to capture data for compliance, to look at whether you can actually prevent risk. So be proactive through risk management controls and structures. And just on that point, the technology in the last 18 months has advanced rapidly. Most platforms are now able to integrate with a whole range of hardware, wearable devices, which prompt the activity. So we're not reliant on human behaviour necessarily to conduct inspections or assessments anymore. Participation. It's the critical one, and it's underutilised. So in a supply chain, you've got a whole range of different partners. And everyone's capturing information for their own purposes, their own reasons. But imagine if you could have all your supply chain partners actively participating and collaborating with you and capturing data for you, which serves their purpose, it serves your purpose. And this is that thing about shared assessments again, where it comes to the fore. But there is a significant opportunity to embrace the participation. And those exo organisations, we're talking about Uber, we're talking about Airbnb, we're talking about all those ones we read about every day, and we wonder how on earth have they grown so fast. They leverage technology, but they leverage people, and they leverage participation and collaboration, and they do it quickly. So there's the opportunity. You've got all these people wanting to do the right thing, participate. We need to give them the tools. We need to encourage them, train them, and have them on board as part of our platform. So the more data you gather, the stronger your business position comes, the more competitive you become, and the more ability you have to influence the market and grow. Personalisation. Personalisation, we can look at whether that be customised, tailored questionnaires, inspections, audit checklists, assessments, or whether it's just dashboards. And you know, in the last 18 months, it's been unbelievable in terms of the number of clients now their executive is saying, I want a dashboard and I want it to look like this. And the data that we've got, can we find out how many assessments we've done, how many inspections we've done, how many incidents we've managed, and so on it goes. And so building out customised dashboards and making this personal to the end users is the critical element. So if you're looking for a solution and an option, ensure that you enable that personalisation. It's key. And if you look at the EXOs again, they personalise every element of their business. Subway allows you to deconstruct your Subway food. So again, it's personalised. The businesses in the world are thinking about this. Some of our customers take it a step further. They allow their supply chain partners, who they might otherwise compete with, see some results, or a regulator. We've recently enabled regulators at the will of clients or industry sectors to be able to provide a dashboard. They do have a restricted or limited view, but it does give the regulator full confidence that what they're being told in terms of the compliance activity is actually being actioned and monitored, and if there are issues, they're being responded to in the appropriate timeframes. Prediction. And I'm aware that there's a big data session after mine, so I won't go into too much depth here. But the collection and analysis of compliance data over time enables the organisation to predict where the risk lies and prevent future disruption through proactive risk management. Drawing back on our utilities experience in this sector, they're able to predict asset life cycles with accuracy. They're able to schedule maintenance and replacement activities accordingly to mitigate the disruption to essential services. This is a real win-win for their community. It means that they've got consistent supply, and the cost of unscheduled maintenance is mitigated. Finally, I just wanted to acknowledge whether, for those of you, I'm new to this industry sector, but for those of you who may or may not know that we've been partnering with the MLA, LiveCorp and ALEC now since 2015. Our company was successful with a tender for the provision of the technology platform for LGAP. And so we've been working closely with Sharon Dundon's team, the R&D team, and I'm grateful for their support to date. And the purpose of the LGAP ITS project, is designed to complement existing compliance regimes and provide the ability for industry to actively monitor in real time the end-to-end supply chain compliance with internationally accepted industry animal welfare standards and, importantly, other industry requirements like social and governance ESG principles. So LGAP ITS project was successfully piloted between November 2015 and February 2016 across the Middle East, Malaysia, Vietnam and Indonesia with outstanding results. We've worked closely with the team and now we're in discussions with Sam Brown and Wayne Collier at LifeCorp to evaluate the feasibility of this project going forward. I hope that we actually have the opportunity to partner with the industry going forward in 2018. So in conclusion, I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity to present today. Have confidence, there is a better way. Compliance can be your friend. If it's implemented right and if the tools are right, it can actually add immense value to your business. It can really drive productivity gain, efficiency and profitability. And we've seen that and it can be done. So I'd like to thank you on that note. Thank you.